Hey everybody, I'm Angie Goff, and this is the Oh My Goff Show. For nearly 2 decades, I've covered big stories and big names, whether it was reporting from the royal wedding, the Super Bowl, or sitting down with the First Lady. There's one thing I know for sure. Behind every headline is a human story, one filled with ups, downs, laughter, and life lessons. Each episode, we'll tap into some pretty incredible minds, people who've found true success in chasing their dream or changing the world. It's the story behind the story that I hope will inspire your own. This is the Oh My Goff Show with Angie Goff. When I was little, I always wanted to be blonde.
I'll just like.
I do like this one.
Yeah,
I'm like,
no, that's fun too.
I'm like,
no, this one's you. The higher the hair, the closer.
That's right. It doesn't even fit the frame. Would you ever think about being like brunette in the district for fun?
No. I'll blonde is just my thing.
Yeah. Dani Sauter is founder of Blonde in the District. This is a popular fashion, beauty, travel blog based in the nation's capital, but her fan base is worldwide. Her message on body positivity is universal. Now, in addition to having beauty and brains, let me tell you, this girl has balls. Disco balls, actually, you will learn as you continue to watch the interview. But what I mean by she has balls is she has been able to do something that so many of us have dreamed of doing, and that is leaving a current situation where we feel stuck, or in her case, it was walking away from a career and a great job, a high-powered marketing job that was stifling her creativity to take a step out and bet on herself. What she did was amazing. It's something that more of us should do, and something that maybe we should have done a long time ago, and that is refuse to stay somewhere and limit yourself just because others can't accept the fact that you are capable of doing so much more. Easier said than done, right? It's hard. As someone who has done it at one point, it's gut-wrenching. It's heartbreaking at times. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of consequences. But at what point is there a tipping point? And at what point do you make your personal happiness a priority? And really in this conversation, you are not going to get fashion tips, so to speak, although I do ask her, how she gets that J-Lo glow, because she's looking fabulous and shining like a diamond. But we're going to talk about the tools you need to grow in whatever industry or passion you're in, how whether you like it or not, or want to accept it or not, that social media does play a role in this. You are your best CEO. You control the message. So how do we do that better? How do we avoid the mistakes? She shares some things that she did. Now more than ever, people think that they can just jump on social media and create a fan base. And some people go to the lengths of actually buying fan bases or trying to find tricks and shortcuts. So we talk about the consequences of that. And she also talks about, tips on how to get started and where to grow and the importance of really finding your voice. This conversation with Dani Sauter makes you smile and above all, inspires you to keep going after what you want. Woohoo!
Yes.
This is super exciting because you're my first in-studio guest in my new little intimate studio.
Yay for the vaccine!
I know. Woohoo! Woo! I know, but we're still like elbow.
Yeah, we're
bumping and
we're kind of far apart. We're good.
Yeah, we're good. And what do you think?
I love it.
Yeah.
So I wore a flamingo dress, just for you because I saw that you had flamingo here.
Yeah.
I love Barbie also. I actually had that Barbie doll when I was a kid.
Peaches and cream?
Yeah, peaches and cream.
Really?
And you said your favorite color is like peach?
Yeah.
So this makes total sense. Like you have peaches and cream Barbie.
Yes. And, I love the color green, money. It's like,
of course, who doesn't love that?
But the reason why, when I decided to start the show, the Oh My Goff Show, trying to decide on a logo and all that stuff, I really had to dig deep and just figure out, okay, I want these things to mean something. And then I started thinking back to my childhood, and I started thinking back to just imagining living a dream. And I remember I got the Barbie dream house, which is like still in the next room.
The one with that you pull the
No, I wasn't as
elevator?
fortunate to get that one. Like I got one that was like 10 years older. I don't know if my parents got this one at, at Goodwill or something, but I used to have like the yellow and orange, like 1979 one.
That's
It was like
amazing though.
predated me, but I just remember that. And then I remember getting the peaches and cream Barbie and thinking, oh my gosh, this is so glamorous. Like this could be my life one day. And, we didn't grow up with much money. We lived in like an apartment probably the size of this studio. And so it was just like this vision of like,
I love it.
Wow.
Though.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
to me, it's like, okay, stepping out when I decided to kind of a similar story, which we'll get into, with you, but when I decided to leave a really good job and, take a leap, for something that, really was a dream to me. I just found inspiration in that. I was like, look, you've made it this far. So
you can do it. Yeah. But I love that because I feel like we're all inspired in some way or another by our childhood. Mm-hmm. And I look back at my childhood all the time and think of stuff like, ooh, I remember like even with style, like I used to have this really cool jean jacket. Like, how can I recreate that today? Like, obviously, like, I don't have this, I could never wear it again. It was like a kid size, but like, how can I recreate that today to fit what I like, memories, all memories, feel good memories.
The nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
And so, Dani Sauter, blonde in the district, but, I was going to I might have to go bust out one of my blonde wigs. I have, I have a wig room.
Oh my gosh.
Next door over.
Please.
It's actually Baby Ren's wig room, but she's let me put a couple of mine in. But
she's allowing you to use the wigs.
Yes. So,
she's so cute.
I've got some blonde wigs. So, just to kind of play along. But for those who don't know your story, Dani, how did you get into this fashion world?
So fashion is something I have always loved. As a kid, I always loved fashion. My problem growing up is, growing up as a curvy teenager, it's very hard to shop. Mm-hmm. And so, I grew up admiring all these fashion magazines and fashion editorials. And it's actually when I look back, I look at the way my style has evolved. And it's so crazy because I feel like my style today is what I wish that I could have had when I was younger. Mm-hmm. But that said, I've always loved style. I've always loved fashion. And I was in a job that was just really ripping me apart. I left a really great job, a government contracting job, to go to the private sector. And when I got there, it was not what, sometimes you're like, is this too good to be true?
Yeah.
And it was too good to be true. And so I got there, I was there for about a year, and I was my confidence just plummeted because, at work, you want to do a good job. Mm-hmm. You want to perform well. And I felt like all my ideas were shot down. I was constantly being told no, constantly being told well, why aren't you doing it this way or this way? And I just felt like I had no creative freedom. Yeah. And I was working in a marketing role. You're supposed to be able to have creative freedom in a marketing role. So I felt really, down on myself. And the way that I would go to work every day and feel confident is through what I was wearing. Mm. And so I was getting dressed to make myself feel good, even though I probably knew I was going into a meeting and would be told no anyways. I was at least going to be told no, knowing that I looked great. So I ended up leaving the job. And in the time that I was looking for a new full-time job, I started Blonde in the District because I just realized, how much of an impact style can have on you and your confidence, just your whole self. When you feel good, it exudes. Mm-hmm. You can see it. Mm-hmm. Other people can see it. Yeah. And I think it just makes such a difference.
And that was 7 years ago?
Yes, almost 7 years ago.
Holy moly. 7 years ago and 1 million trillion billion pictures of glam.
Oh my gosh, right?
I was looking through your stuff and I'm like, I have anxiety choosing a profile pic. Like, how do you choose, which one you want to put out there? But what I love is if you go to blondeinthedistrict.com, your main picture is just a picture of you looking into a mirror, a reflection of yourself. Yes. And I think that that's very powerful. I think it's very, very telling. What I love about you is that you before the pandemic, a lot of people are having these revelations and these moments of transformation.
Yes.
These moments of realizing what the priorities in their lives are. They realizing that life is short.
Totally.
And I can't waste a minute, even if it means that I'm going to be poor, even if it means I'm going to lose friends. I'm going to go and bet on myself. And so the fact that you were able to walk away and jump into this new, I don't even want to say a newfound passion because it sounds like it was always in you.
It was always there. I needed a reason to bring it out. Mm-hmm. And this experience, even though it was a bad experience at the time, ended up being a great experience for me because it taught me that I needed to bring this out of myself. Mm-hmm. And it gave me the tools, I guess, in a way to bring it out of myself.
Yeah.
So that's why I say, even if you're in a situation and it seems like it's a bad situation right now, mm-hmm. you're going to look back and be like, I learned something, or I did something great because of, what I was in at that time, or what I learned at that time.
Yeah.
Even a bad experience is a good experience.
You're right. And I often say, even when it comes to people that come in your life or experiences in your life, like they do one of two things. They're either a blessing or they're a lesson.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And
100%.
And I think that that's always what gives me perspective when I start to feel regret or anger or
mm-hmm.
whatever. I'm like, okay, I've got to see the lesson in this.
Yeah.
What can I take away? And it's total mind game, right?
It is.
It's so hard. And it's hard because, especially now, we're not around our friends as much, our family, our support groups, our coworkers. And so we almost need to be our own therapist and pump ourselves up.
Absolutely.
You talk about your past, and I kind of want to dig into that a little more. Mm-hmm. Because I look at you and I think anybody who, it's about perception too, especially in this world of social media. And I'm like, that girl has got it going on. Like, that is the confidence that I need. I want my daughters to have. Mm-hmm. I have a 10-year-old right now, and it scares the shit out of me, to be honest. Because I can see her
and kids
start
are mean.
to think about what other people think.
Yeah.
And so were you always this confident as a kid?
No. And I think for me, I was very shy as a kid. My parents put me in acting classes. So I did acting, when I was, a young adult or teenager through college, essentially. They would put me in tennis camp trying to get me to kind of come out of my shell. But I was so, I think at the time, not even realizing it, I didn't have any confidence because I was that curvier teenager. I was made fun of in school because, I wasn't this big and things like that. And I always knew I was I always want to get somewhere and be somewhere that's not going to matter. Mm-hmm. Why does size always have to matter? And I think, growing up in the 90s with looking at, a young curvy girl looking at Vogue and seeing all 5'11", stick thin.
In slip dresses.
God. No, I'm how, I love fashion, but in a way, fashion did create this mindset, and mm-hmm. society, culturally, how we see ourselves and how we see other people. Mm-hmm. I do think that, the environment in fashion is shifting. I think we still have a ways to go mm-hmm. for size inclusion and things like that. But I mean, part of the reason I focus so much on my visuals is because I love editorial fashion photography. Mm-hmm. Growing up, I never saw myself reflected on those pages. Yeah. And I want to create that space for somebody else today.
Yeah. And I feel like that's why you've had staying power. Mm-hmm. Because it's one thing to realize a dream.
Yes.
Go after it, be all psyched and motivated and then, have your cheerleaders around you. But sustaining it is
hard.
Whole nother
You have to be invested. And I see this so many times with bloggers. People think it's easy. This is not easy. Mm-hmm. If you want to stand out, it is not easy. You have to have the passion for it. You have to make the investment of your time, money, everything. And it took me a while to get here. Mm-hmm. I was recently, I looked back at some of my original like blog photos.
Yeah.
My dad is so sweet. He used to go out with me on like Saturday mornings really early and take my photos for me.
Oh.
And because he was a photographer back in the day.
I love you.
Yes.
Oh my God. He reminds me of my dad. Oh.
Yeah. So he would go with me and take the photos for me, and then I would edit them. And finally I realized it wasn't my dad did a great job with the photography. I just didn't have the skills to edit the photos the way that I wanted. So I looked back and I was like, I think maybe it's time that I hire out photography.
Mm-hmm.
If this is something that I really want to like go next level, it's time to hire out photography. So I think, realizing when you need help and when you need assistance is a huge thing of growing any business.
And know that it's an investment.
It is. It's an investment in yourself and your brand. Mm-hmm. And it's what's going to take you to the next level. You can't get to the next level staying where you've always been.
Yeah. You're going to have to take another risk. That is all part of the process. And I loved a recent post that you put up that said, that played along with that whole trend of how it started, how it's going.
Yeah.
And you talked about that, and you talked about self-doubt.
It's
because you look at you and I don't see any self-doubt,
but we're all human. That's another thing you were saying about perception earlier and how people are only seeing the outside. Mm-hmm. They're only seeing the facade that you've created. People, you don't know what's going on with people internally. And especially in the age of social, it is so easy to compare yourself to other people. Compare yourself. Oh, this person started at the same time I am, and they're like way up here and I'm down here. And it's not always, you can maybe have that self-doubt, but it's not always, I think it's just too easy to get down on yourself because you see what other people are doing. Mm-hmm. You don't know what they did to get there. You don't know how much time that they've been investing, what their story is. So, I think the comparison game is very strong, especially with Instagram and everything.
Yeah, but how do you deal with that? Because
well, I look back and I'm like, okay, I started here and now I'm here. I have to be thankful for where I am today. Because I think so often we are getting caught up in like the grind, and I really want to be here. Why am I not here yet? And sometimes you have to appreciate where you are and look back at things that you have accomplished, to get there. And one of my favorite things is, Instagram essentially is like a visual portfolio. It's like your resume in a way. Mm-hmm. And I sometimes scroll back and like look at my earliest posts and I'm like, wow, I would never post that now. And like, look at like, you can even see like my photos. Like I'm just like kind of like still doing the typical like, purse on, the typical like blogger.
I still do
like,
that one.
No, you don't. No, you don't. But the typical just like still like, oh, I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know where to look. Yeah, I'm just going to look off to the side. And you can see the progression. And it's so apparent. And if you're having self-doubt, I urge you to go back and like look, over the past few years and look at what you've accomplished. Because sometimes we forget the Washingtonian that we were both in.
Yeah.
That was one of my goals when I started. I was like, I want to be a Washingtonian style setter. I think that's amazing. And it happened. And I had to be thankful for things like that,
Yes. And appreciate them. Because like you said, I think we're so caught up, especially in the news world, with what the headline is right now, what's in front of me. Oh my gosh, like what's happening on the feed? Because things are going so fast these days.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, I'm like, I have no more tabs in my brain. I cannot open anything else and put anything else in it. I think it's going to explode. And so, I think that that's the biggest thing, because whether you are a fashion blogger, whether you are an influencer, whether you work in news, whether you work in the restaurant industry, social media is now it's essentially everybody's own marketing platform.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, these are marketing platforms. Like they're making money off of you. Like their whole plan is to just, for you, their currency is for you to find people to look at your stuff and stay on longer than ever. And that's how they're going to push your stuff up to the top. And so, so it's whether or not you scoff at it and you think that it's not important, it's the first place people go to now.
Oh,
regardless of what industry you're in.
100%. Anytime I'm going on a vacation, looking for a hotel, looking for a good restaurant to go to, I always go to their Instagram page because I'm like, I want to see visually. I don't want to read a review. I want to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
I'm a very visual person. And I think I think that's why Instagram is so successful, because it's all visual. TikTok is very successful because it's all visual, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the first thing that I do when I'm looking to like go somewhere, find a new brand, things like that. I always look at their social media.
Yeah.
It's so important.
I would love your take on where you think the influencer world is going, because I feel like it has gotten so saturated.
It is so
and
saturated.
So many people, like you said, they look at it and they're like, oh, you know, I have cute clothes. I can do this. And, you know, people respond to me. They want to see my stuff. But you mentioned it is hard work. What do you think, you know, from the time when you started to where it is now? I'd just be interested on your thoughts on it. And then also how you make yourself stand out, you know, for those that really they feel like this is their calling.
Yeah. I think, you know, you hit a point. It is very saturated. Standing out right now is so hard. And especially with influencing, since it is still somewhat a new profession, people don't know, a lot of brands don't know how to work with influencers. You know, they don't know, oh, can we just do this in an exchange? And like back in the day, I used to do everything for free because I didn't know any better, you know, and then as, you know, you build your platform up and as you start to like spend all of your time, your resources doing all this free work, you're like, I should be being paid for this. Why am I not being paid?
Yeah.
So I think right now, another struggle with, you know, with influencing blogging is somebody may come to you and be like, okay, here are my rates, but there's no like set rate that you can.
That's what I was going to ask you. How do you know what to charge? Or charge?
It's basically I have a manager now and we sat down and figured out my rates and we're like, this is what seems fair for my time, the amount of time it's going to take me to create the content from the time I conceptualize it to the time I actually create it, put things together, stage it, post it. Like all of that has a fee, you know, and it's all included in, you know, the rate, but it's hard to figure that out. And a lot of times I want to say as women have a hard time charging our worth. So I think, you know, for me, it was that I am worth this. My content is good. I have a platform and I'm worth this. I've invested so much of my time. I've earned, you know, my right to be able to charge fees. Like so I think it's difficult, but a lot of brands look at it like, oh, well, I can find someone else to do it for free.
I was wondering that because
so it happens a lot.
Because to a lot of people that are willing to, especially if they're just starting out, I mean, they're just willing to do anything and everything to make it look like they are collabing with, you know, a big brand or this and that.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You have to start somewhere.
Right.
You know?
So you think that that's fine if you're just starting out, do what you have. But where does you know, you hear so much, I feel like it's been overplayed, but we talk about it in TV too, you know, the authenticity factor, because there's so many things that I look at and I'm like, it just seems like
was this person just paid to do this?
To do this, but also it looks like what everybody else is doing too. You know what I'm saying? It's like almost the same format and the pictures look all the same and the color scheme's all the same. And I'm like, you know, maybe this is just something I haven't tapped into. Maybe there is a full, you know, industry for this. But how important is that as far as authenticity? Is it good enough just to be yourself, or is it more about finding like a niche? You know, for you, it's fashion and body positivity, right? So what would be your advice for those that are going to start? Because I feel like I look and there's so many people on my feed. I'm like, what is your message? Like they're just trying to find their way and I'm confused and it's hard for me to get on board.
No, I totally understand. And I hear you and I see it all the time. And I think the main thing is you do have to have a niche. You have to say, I'm going to do these areas. And, you know, I tried everything, to be honest. Like I've tried everything. I'll still sometimes post, you know, something about food or cocktails because I enjoy food, cocktails, everything. And I think everybody else does too. But I try and kind of sprinkle it in. I'm not like, I'm going to go full blown food blogger because that's not me, you know? So I think it's important to kind of stay within your lanes and do what makes sense for you. If you genuinely enjoy an item, a restaurant, whatever, that's going to shine.
Okay.
That's going to shine through. Whether you're just trying to like copy what somebody else did or like go with the trends or the crowds, that's where you're going to fall flat. Yeah. You have to have some sort of authenticity. And especially today when people are scrutinizing, influencing, and like just the environment of our world right now. If you're not being real, I think it shows. And I think it's going to be a downfall for
What do you think? Because I feel like we talk about this industry and it's blowing up.
Mhm.
It's blowing up. Different companies have found ways to capitalize off of it, from the variety of influencer companies that you can team up with that will send you campaigns
Mhm.
to make it easier if you qualify, and they can help connect you to social media companies that claim they can help grow your followings and your engagement and that type of thing. What is your take on that? And have you had any personal experiences with those? And are there some good ones out there? I mean, what's the vetting process? Because like you could go on there and it's like, you can have 5,000, you hear all the time about people like just blowing up their own numbers and stuff.
Mhm.
And I mean, does that work for some people? Does it not? I mean, what's your take on that?
I think there are a lot of different ways, like especially when it comes to like growing your platform, you can pay for anything these days.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing about, going back to the facade that you create, how many people that you see like blow up overnight.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like, did they go viral? Which is a very valid way that you can grow huge overnight. Were you just on a huge news story? Was there a huge article about you? Or did you just blow up with nothing going on? It's like, okay.
Yeah. So you see that often too.
Yes. And you can, again,
Is that frustrating for you?
Absolutely.
Because you're doing all this work and then you have,
Absolutely. It's frustrating. And especially
how do you not let that bother you?
Well, that goes back to like the self-doubt and everything.
Yeah.
And I've learned, that I just have to stay in my lane.
I hear all these, I listen to a lot of podcasts, these bloggers and, or influencers or people in business,
right,
who say, gosh, I tried this and that, and then I realized, well, the engagement wasn't really real. And so it's like I wasted a ton of money
to do this.
do this. So I think that when people are getting into the game, like I look at friends, I mean, I have friends that I'm like, you are starting an Instagram account, and I make them do it, and then they feel like they're so behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
But they almost feel like it's not worth it because they're starting from nothing.
Totally.
And so it can be very tempting for people
to do that. I mean, back in the day, like I remember when it was still a thing. I think Instagram has since like outlawed this somehow, or like banned it from happening on like the algorithm. But there were like the automatic likes for a while. The automatic, you would go follow people and then unfollow people.
Yeah.
And that was a thing. And I remember I tried it because everybody was talking about it. They're like, I grew so much. And while I did gain people at that time, what sucked is people then messaged me that realized like, cause it just targets like people. Like I remember at one point I was getting like tons of all these followers and they looked really sketchy. And I was like, what is going on? And I was like, okay, cancel this. I tried another one and it was targeting people like with certain hashtags. So you like go in and you're like people that use this hashtag or people that follow these people, like similar people.
Yeah.
And, I got a few messages a few times from people that were like, oh, it was so nice that you followed me and then unfollowed me. You're supposed to be making women feel confident about themselves, and that makes me feel like crap. And I was like, cancel. Like, this is not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. So I don't know. I think unless you have an actual physical person behind your Instagram going out there, or you're doing it, it takes a lot of time though. So much time. But if you have help, you can do it. An actual person, not some sort of bot. Like it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth the money. It's worth it to start out and start the like, the path forward. And even if you feel like you're behind, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So
because it's work. I think that's the thing. For so long, I was telling people like, I didn't build this overnight. This was like hours of like finishing a Facebook Live and then going through the 500 comments and liking it and responding to all these people, acknowledging them, because they're taking their time for you. I mean, it really is a conversation. And then when I got to the point, I'm doing like 3 to 4 shows a night now, 5 days a week. And, I've got 3 kids and they're all in activities. It was the thing I realized. I was like, you know what? Time is money.
100%.
And it comes down to, and I realized I didn't have any time for my kids because I'd finish work and I'd come home and I'd have to like check all this stuff. So I did. I hired somebody who could just help go through, you know, get me the messages that I need to get.
Yes.
You know, could help me post content, you know, because I love the creation part, just like you love, you know, but, you know, posting it and, you know,
using the right hashtags, posting at a certain time, like all of that. Like,
but I want to go back and see what you're saying, and I want to respond, and I want to, you know, heart this, and then, you know, and I want to be able to look at, you know, at things that people I like are doing and get more ideas. And so, but I realized finally, and I was probably a few years too late. Like, gosh, this was worth the money, and for my sanity, because it is work depending on, you know, and for me, it's really important in the job, you know, with what we do. So it's just, you know, and that's not for everybody, right? But like I said, you know, depending on what your industry is, it is.
Well, I think no matter what industry you're in, the main thing with using Instagram or Facebook, or I don't know so much TikTok, but definitely for Facebook and Instagram, it's creating a community, replying to those comments, replying to your DMs. You know, how many times have you like messaged like someone and they never reply to you ever? And it's like, okay, I know that you've had to see something that I've sent you. Like, I get it. Like, we can miss DMs all the time, but like, just reply at some point, or at least heart it. Like, do something, create a community, and that's what's way more authentic than any of these programs out there that will do that. Hiring an actual person to help you, and then going in and making people feel good, creating conversations in your comments, you know, section, like things like that.
Yeah, I love that.
I think that's so important.
So the pandemic hit us a year ago.
Yes.
And that had to be hard for someone who is known for being in the hottest spots in town.
Yes.
Dressing to the nines. I mean, this is your MO. Like, this was your life. I'm like, how did you not go insane? Did you just dress up every day in your house? I mean, how did you exude that energy? And I know you had to really, like most people, find a way to stay relevant.
Yes.
And to also stay sensitive to the situation what was going, because I think a lot of time, you know, we look at fashion as luxury, whether it is or not, you know, and so how did you walk that fine line? And because I love the content that you put out, you know, you had like work from home fashion, you were showing mask chains, you were bubble wrapping yourself. I mean, tell me about this. Like, how do you come up with these ideas, and how did you really have to make a shift in what you do?
Right. Well, I think the biggest thing is I had to take all of this content myself. You know, like I had to create, you know, like if I was going to have a theme, like most of my quarantine, I called it my quarantine content because, you know, I was home, nothing else to do other than work. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, a lot of times it was ideas that would either come to me like that day. I'd be like, okay, I have 5 disco balls. I can do this post. Like, you know,
I love
like
the disco post.
Yeah. Like I have like,
wait, you just have disco balls laying around?
Yes. I know.
This is my kind of
that
girl.
was like some people's comments.
My kind of girl.
Some people's comments were like, you own all that at home? And I'm like, yes, I have like 6 disco balls at home. It's fine. But you know, I just tried to utilize my apartment as best as I could.
I feel like I need to plug my disco ball in.
Yes.
I don't, sorry. Keep talking.
Please.
Keep talking.
But you know, it was a shift in terms of I couldn't be outside shooting content at these like, you know, beautiful places. I couldn't be in studio. So I just had to work with what I had.
Do you see this?
Yes.
It's not really disco ball, but it's like.
I'll take it though.
Right?
I'll take it.
I mean.
I feel like we're in the club. We're in the club.
Are you in a club?
Yes.
Yeah,
I love this.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
This is so funny. I'm like dying.
I'm ready to go to a club, like seriously.
I needed my little disco. It's hard to see with all the light, okay? I'm trying to do that. I just had to do that for a moment. And you know, we're going to have to talk about this with the disco on
yes.
during the segment or during this talk.
I love it.
And then so people responded to this.
Well, yeah, because I think everybody else was stuck at home. Everyone else was stuck at home, you know.
So this is really an opportunity to capitalize on them not having any, you know, anything else to do. It's so smart.
It was great too because everybody was at home, so everybody was on social media. So, you know.
Did you see your stuff go up? I mean, was there growth?
Definitely growth. I saw more likes, more comments, more DMs, like the whole 9 yards, because people had nothing else to do. Yeah. And so I just like, you know, I have to be real. Like I can't make this I can't create this blonde in the district persona out and about. Like I have to make this, hey, I'm also at home too.
Yeah.
I'm also taking, things seriously. I'm trying to promote, we should be wearing masks. Using my platform with the current environment, I think was very important for me during that time. Showing, hey, I'm at home in a bathrobe just like you are.
Wait, solitary confinement?
Yes.
What I love about you too is that you're witty. I mean,
Thank you.
And you have such a good, I love someone who can play off words and you were there and you're right. It was like a conversation. You said, hey, let me know your favorite board games. Cause we know that puzzles and board games sales were going through the roof. You couldn't find a puzzle.
Yeah. Everything was sold out. And that's another thing I tried to do. I tried to shift my focus more on local because I knew local businesses were all closed or they're operating, all my favorite restaurants were shut down or they were just doing carry out or, delivery. So I tried to support local too at the time.
Yeah. But how were you able, because just going back to this being like a job, were you hit financially with this as well?
Absolutely. And I'm actually seeing the effects more now than I was during the pandemic.
So that we don't, just a moment.
It's cool. We have lights going.
Oh,
it's
really?
like 8:30 in the morning.
So
Woo!
I'm
seeing the effects now. So during the pandemic, I did have contracts and things like I had like year-long contracts get canceled because the brands had to close or they couldn't afford it. But I did have some cool opportunities came up. Like I was able to model for one of my favorite brands, Eloquy, because they couldn't shoot anything up in New York City. So they sent me all the clothes. And we did an outdoor photo shoot. Yeah. And so that was actually something cool I was able to create. And we sent them the visuals and they had it on their website. So there were things like that came up. And then in the fall, I started to see more coming in. And then now in terms of fashion, I think so many brands are seeing the effect from the past year. And so contracts right now are very slim.
Wow.
A lot of it is just gifting opportunities. There's not as much paid work, but I'm confident things will come back.
Balance out.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely I've seen a huge hit.
You see these headlines all the time, like YouTuber makes $14 million a year. Fashion blogger makes, 1.5 million a year just posting pictures weekly. Is there truth to that? Can this be a lucrative business?
Yes, it can. In fact, this is a story I always like to tell. At the end of 2019, right before, the pandemic and everything, I was ready to go full time with my blog. I was making enough salary income at the time that I was like, I can do this. Like I'm making almost what I'm making at my 9-to-5 job. Wow. Like I could do this. And if I have more time and I don't have my, 9-to-5, then I can
because it was
get more work.
Because it was on a
consistent basis. And
like, what's the most you can make on a shoot?
It depends.
Like for a picture or?
It depends. It all depends. It depends on like,
do you want to share?
I don't want to share numbers, but you
want to share one? I want to know like what your biggest
okay, probably my biggest campaign. I won't say who it was.
Yeah,
my biggest campaign probably has been about $8,000. Yeah, it's been a multiple post thing, but it's over like a course of a few months. But that's my biggest.
Shoot, $8,000. I will let you have my IG takeover. Like take over my account. I don't care.
Yeah,
it's all yours.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, wow. But I think. But again, it depends. Like, it depends on where you are, what you're charging. I think a lot of people don't charge maybe what they're worth. And anyways, getting back to the whole, leaving the job, I was like, I'm not quite ready. Like, something didn't feel right. The pandemic hit and I was like, thank goodness, because it wouldn't have been a steady income coming in the door.
That would have been, so you followed your gut.
Yeah.
Have you learned to do that more as you got older?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, it doesn't feel right now. And I think it can go with like brands too. Like a lot of brands will reach out and I'm like, you know what? This just doesn't feel right. Yeah. I don't like something about this or an opportunity, not so much a brand, but maybe an opportunity comes up and I'm like, I don't know. So
are there things that you've said no to just even if they were good money? Like
100%.
Yeah. How do you decide 100%. To do that? Is it more?
It goes back to the being your authentic self because especially now, I think people are really looking at brands that you support with the environment of our world right now in our country. And, so I like to be very conscious of supporting brands that I know have my same values.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a brand that doesn't, then, it's not worth it to me.
Yeah.
It's not worth it for the money.
You talk about fashion, how you don't see it as a superficial thing, and makeup. You see it as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more about that.
Well, it goes back to when you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, everyone can tell. Even if it's just yourself, you feel it. You feel more confident walking into a room. And, I know that style is looked at as, again, going back to like Vogue magazine and the designers of like the 90s and fashion models and runway shows and all this, it can seem so superficial, but I totally disagree. I think it's a way for us to express ourselves. Yeah. It's, you can see somebody and you can be like, wow, that person, like, I want to know more about them. I want to know their story because they're dressed, to the nines, or they have this cool outfit on. It's a way of self-expression. And I think that that's what leads to confidence. So, and same with beauty. Perfect, lip gloss or a red lip, which used to be my signature. I'm kind of going more to glosses now. It's funny how that's changed. But I could put on red lipstick and be like, I can conquer the world today. Yeah. Because it just gives you that added like boost to make you feel good.
So it could be something that simple.
Yes.
And so when we talk about fashion, being a tool, I mean, looking at some of your awesome outfits. I wore pink today because I know you like pink.
And look, I have like pink here.
Yes, I know. It's perfect. And I'm the same way. Like, I mean, I'm embarrassed to show you my closet, but I have like full-blown sequin suits and things like that. And some people will be like, you're so quirky and everything. But it's like, I have to imagine in some of the outfits that you have when you walk through the nation's capital. I mean, we're not known for being like the fashion cap. Okay. I lived in LA before. I've spent a lot of time in New York too. And in Seoul, Korea as well, and Japan. What's the reaction from people? Have you ever had any funny experiences or really great ones?
All the time. I remember when I first started blogging, there was I was down at the mall, the National Mall, and there was a family from like out of town, and my dad was actually taking my photos at the time, but I was like, dolled up, and not something overly crazy, like probably not like I'd wear something crazier now than I did back then, but they stopped me and they were like, can we take your photo? Are you a famous person? Like, it was like, they couldn't believe that this person was on the National Mall looking really good in a cool fashion outfit. Like, it was crazy. And I was like, because we're not known for that, we aren't. And I think, I get a mix of things. I get a mix of like, oh my gosh, I love your look. Or I get stares, Yeah. But I've been going to a shoot before. I still remember this. I was by City Center and I had a pair of like high heels on that had hearts all over them by DVF. And this woman like starts honking her car, the horn of her car. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, I didn't know she was at me. And then she like leans out of her car. She's like, I love your shoes. And I was like, thank you. So I was like, I hope that it inspires somebody else to wear something crazy. Like just because we live in the DC area doesn't mean that we can't be fashionable.
And you do that type of thing too. You will talk to a perfect stranger if you see something you like, right?
100%. I was at a wedding actually this weekend, and one of the women there had this beautiful teal dress with like huge sleeves. And I stopped her and I was like, your dress is amazing. And she's like, my mom made it. And I was like, that is so cool. That is amazing. Yeah. And so I just love that like conversation. I was like, okay, so style runs in their family, clearly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will.
But you learned a little more about her story too. Yeah. It opens people up, doesn't it?
Totally. Style is a great tool for confidence, learning about each other, starting conversations.
And boosting other people's moods.
If somebody stops you on the street and is like, I love your top. You look beautiful today. Doesn't that make you feel good?
Yeah. There was a time though, and I haven't really talked about it on the podcast, but, I had battled my weight all through adolescence and through college. And so I will say only in the last 5 years or so did I learn to take a compliment. Like I would always cower. Like if people were like, oh, you look great, or you're beautiful, or you have a great smile. I remember Helen Reddy, who, rest in peace. I think she was in Pete's Dragon or Puff's Magic Dragon, singer. She's back in the olden days. But you know, we grew up military, and so we'd go to these USO things. And I remember meeting her, and she was signing her, autograph. She looked up and she was like, "You have the most beautiful smile." And I just remember being so embarrassed and being like, "Thank you." And I remember like I wanted to feel really good about it, but I wasn't sure, I couldn't believe that she would say that. And it's crazy because I work in television, and I think a lot of people assume people that work in TV are very crazy and outgoing and, are very confident. And it's just, my entire life, like I did the same thing. I would look at, fashion magazines and Tiffany Amber Thiessen in a bathing suit and be like, oh my God, no way. Yeah. And, and so I just think that, learning to take a compliment. Yes. But I think, the more you give them out, like you can't help, like that's just good energy, right? Absolutely. And so when you remind me a lot of, and this is how, I opened it up, in introducing you, Dolly Parton, who is Saint Dolly, the Dalai Lama. I mean, here's my shrine. Literally. Yes. Let's bring her. Can we bring her on the table? Yes. I know. I should have lit the candle. Okay. I know. Yeah. Dolly. She always said, if you see someone without a smile, give them yours. Mm-hmm. And that's just another way I feel like when you see someone, that you really can give them that ability to smile. Science shows when you smile more, it's good. An instant, mood lift. Yes. And so we all have the power. We always talk about changing the world. And I just think that you can do that every day. Mm-hmm. Just by being positive, by acknowledging other people and being positive. Yeah. There's so much negativity, especially in the online space. I know you get it all the time. I see some of your stuff. I'm like, what is that person thinking? Like, are you crazy? And I think it takes so much more to spread a bad, say something negative about somebody than it does to. It's so much easier to just be nice and to compliment somebody, right? And that it just makes the world better. Yeah. One negative thing can ruin your whole day. Your week, whatever. And it can stay with you. Mm-hmm. A positive thing can also stay with you and completely shift, your mood or how you feel about yourself. That's why, I started keeping, because you tend to remember the negative things easier than you do the positive ones. You do. Which is why, I've started keeping those notes, those messages, those emails. And because it's work, it's like going back and reminding yourself, look, you don't suck as bad as they say you do. You're not as gross as they say, or as annoying or obnoxious or, appalling, as this person said you were. So when a lot of people are getting ready to get back out into the world, and I have friends that are like, I have not tried my jeans on since the start of the pandemic. Oh gosh, that's, I have those moments. Stepping out and feeling good again, because if you go to the mall, like everything they're selling in the windows is still athleisure. Yeah, it's like all these, which I'm not against, because that's like totally. I have a whole sweat pant collection, but I do now too. But I didn't before. I didn't before pre-pandemic. So, what would be your advice as far as taking that first step to not just giving in to this idea that we've been hermits for a year, and really embracing getting out there and being your best self, living your best life, putting on that red lipstick, trying it, playing at home. I just bought 3 new lip glosses because I'm like, I'm going to play good for you at home. I don't get it because I don't wear makeup normally, if I'm not working. But I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll start doing this when I go out and about, even if it's just gloss. And so, and it was kind of fun. My husband's like, what are you doing over there? He's like, did you get lip injections? I'm like, no, I'm just trying. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Like, I'm like, I was like, I'm just, new look. Like the pumping one, so you're like extra. Yeah, I'm like, it's burning. Yeah, I know. Yes, there are some of those have an adverse. I feel like you're like, why is it like burning so much? I'm having an allergic reaction. But what would be your best advice for something like that? Is there a go-to or a starting point? I think it's just what you're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. I mean, the past year we've all been in sweats. When you go out, maybe throw a dress on. It doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be out there. I wore heels for the first time, like actually like out heels, like high heels. Wow. And I was like, whoa, I don't know that I can do this anymore. Like I've gotten so used to sneakers and slippers and everything. So like you this can is kind all I wear, even on TV, because you don't see the bottoms. Well, why not? Nobody sees the bottoms. Yeah. I have sneakers on right now. Like, like it's,
I think you can still be comfortable, but you can still kind of take it up a notch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can wear like sneakers with dresses are so cute.
Yeah.
Why not just like throw on a dress you haven't worn in a while? You know, I know a lot of people weren't shopping for a while now. Like spring is here. People are starting to bring back, at least online, the stores. I agree. I only see athletic wear.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, bring it back up.
What do you because you're into the whole fashion thing and the makeup thing. So going fashion forward, I mean, what's the one thing that the must have that you think that we should have?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I'm all about a really fun bag, or like I actually just had a post last week about straw bags, like, you know, wicker bags or like canvas bags. I feel like are very in right now. And I think, you know, maybe if you still want to be comfortable in your athleisure, you can still take it up a notch with a really fun accessory like a bag.
Yeah.
So if you're looking, maybe you're not quite ready to shop again yet, like invest in a bag or a fun pair of shoes, you know, a fun pair of sneakers if you're like not into wearing heels like I am right now.
Yeah.
You
well,
know?
I love how they said in the forecast that, you know, slippers or shoes that look like slippers, you know, I think Kim K kind of put them on the map, like those big fluffy.
Yeah.
So I went out, I have like 3 or 4 fluffy slippers.
Yeah.
But they're shoes.
And they're fun.
They're fun.
Yeah.
Like one pair is like lime green. I think that UGG makes them, and they're super comfortable.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's just another easy way. Do you have a favorite like makeup tip or anything to, you know, because you have that glow. You have that jet glow. I love it.
MAC highlighter is like my go-to.
Okay.
So, you know, even I know that, you know, a lot of us are getting vaccinated, but we still have to wear masks in public places. So I say play up your eyes. Okay. And that's something that I was doing, like wear a really fun white eyeliner or electric blue eyeliner, something like that. Even if you're behind a mask, you still have something fun popping out.
I think I saw a study that people said people looked older wearing masks. Like it was out there for something with the eyes. And my sister recently said that someone told her that as well. My older sister, she was like, oh my God. You know, they thought that, you know, it was when I took my mask off, they were like, you look way younger.
I could see that because you're not seeing, like, I think your smile has so much to do with it too, though, you know?
But that's a great tip. Yeah. You know, even if it's just mascara or something.
Yeah, a blue mascara or, you know, just something fun. That's what I actually, you know, for a while, like last summer, I barely wore makeup, but I was always wearing eye makeup. Yeah. And I think that's a really fun go-to still.
Well, and I realized also with mine, I think maybe the mask is what drew me to it. I was like, gosh, my eyes look tired, but they don't look like bright. And so I started using eye drops now. I use like Lumify.
Yeah.
And I do them right before I put it in air. And I just do one drop on each eye. And it's like, it brightens the white around it. And it almost like gives you life. So I think little things like that can just make you feel better. Your clothes are ridiculous. Okay. Like
my husband would say the same. He's like, I have a whole room. That's my closet. I like feel like Elton John. You know, Elton John, when he travels, he has a suite for himself and a suite for his clothes.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, in a perfect world, I aspire to be that way.
Yeah.
But at home, I have a whole bedroom. That's just my closet.
How big is your husband's closet?
10. And I'm always like, we need to go through this. You don't wear half this. We need to get rid of it. And he's like, excuse me. Like just points to my room. And I'm like, okay, fine. Like you can keep your small, you know, whatever. But,
do you buy all that stuff or do you get it? Cause I mean, you have a lot of designer stuff too. Or is it like rented or like, how does that all work?
A mix of it. You know, I have had, you know, I've been fortunate to work with some amazing fashion brands that I love. And so sometimes I get clothes, you know, for gifted. Sometimes I get clothes in exchange. Sometimes, I mean, I do pay for my clothing too. It comes in a mix. I still utilize Rent the Runway. So some of it's rented. So it all just depends. But my purses, my shoes, all for the most part I've all purchased.
Yeah. Because you just love it.
I just love it. I just love fashion.
Oh my gosh. And then do you have to purge? I mean, what?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So during pandemic, I actually did a huge closet clean out and I did a whole like online sale with a local boutique, Fia's Fab Finds. And she actually has plus size consignment.
Oh, wow.
Which is a lot of local, you know, places don't do plus size consignment.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that. Yeah.
So she does. So I sell my stuff with her, and I actually need to do another clean out.
Is it online?
I'm just like, she has a store, but she does her sales online, like on Instagram Live or Facebook Live.
What's it called?
Fia's Fab Finds.
Oh,
and she's in DC, and so I actually need to. I was texting her and saying like I need to do another closet clean out. So I do purges, and I mean if it's. I'll donate a lot of clothing, but if it's a great item that maybe still has tags, because it's happened, or I've only like worn it a few times, or it's still in like amazing condition, I'll sell it.
Yeah. Oh my God, I gotta show you my closet before you leave because we just unpacked I need to do that. I need to go through and just
do a purge. I mean, it's so hard though because I hold on to stuff and I'm like,
me too. It's like I get attached.
I get attached and then I'm like, I know that I'll wear this someday. Like, you know,
and
like,
never,
and then
it's been 3 years.
It's been at least a year because nobody's doing anything. Like I've maybe worn it for a photo, like during quarantine content. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to part with clothing.
It really is. Why is it so emotional? I start to think about it and I don't know if it goes back to childhood. Like with me, we never got the brand name things. I still remember back in the day, everybody had a pair of Keds. I don't even know if they sell, the Keds anymore. With the little blue, thing on the back.
Yes.
And, we couldn't afford them. So I would draw, I would take a blue marker and I would make my own on the back.
Heads. Yeah.
And I was thinking, from far away, people will think that, but that's how bad I wanted to fit in and how bad.
Yeah.
And so I started working when I was, legal, like 8th grade in Korea. And I've never stopped working because of that. Even my dad, he moonlighted on the weekends, even though he was working military, he would work at the movie theaters and that was our job. We'd go in and help him and we'd clean up the theater, at the end of the night. And, and that's why I never leave popcorn at the theater because it's like, somebody's got to clean that up. But it's just so that's been, instilled in me. And I think so once I started to make my own money, my first TV job, I got a lot of my suits from Goodwill, which I've kept and they're in storage. And I bought polyester suits. I would buy clothes from Express or wherever for job interviews and leave the tags on and then return them, and so I think back to all that stuff and I'm like, gosh, the stuff that I've eventually owned, it's just, there's a story there and it's hard for me to let it go. But then I realized, well, there's somebody else that probably could use this, suited for change or things like that.
Right.
And so, but it is a process. It's an emotional one, right?
And I think going back to childhood that you touched on that, I think part of my attachment to clothing is all these clothes fit. I have all these clothes that are in my size that fit me. Whereas growing up, I didn't have many options. I remember limited 2 was a huge thing and I'd squeeze into limited 2.
Yeah.
And, it wouldn't really fit right, but I desperately wanted to wear it. So I would wear it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, clothing now it's a luxury that I didn't have back in the, when I was growing up. And so I think that's my attachment to clothes.
I definitely think it plays into this because it's easy for people on the outside to look like, oh my God, sell this stuff. There's no way. And in all reality, I do wear the same outfit almost every single day when I'm not working. Yeah. So it does make no sense. If you talk a lot about your childhood, if you could get advice to a younger Dani, I think about my 10-year-old daughter now. I think about how she just had a birthday this past fall, and I gave her a sash that said "Birthday Girl." And the moment a couple of her friends walked in, she had taken it off, and it was it was like a punch in my gut because I was like, "Is she embarrassed? No, you need to own this, girl. Put your crown on. Let's straighten it, or wear it to the side if you want."
Right.
And that was my first sign of she cares what others think.
She cares.
And so I went and I'm trying to literally, choke her with it. I'm like, you will wear this.
You're going to wear
the birthday girl. Y'all see that birthday? She's like, Mom. And I'm like, because I just, I know what that's like.
Yeah.
And I know what it was like to be an outsider. I was never the cool one or the popular one. I was very shy too. Then I found comedy and that was my defense mechanism at one point. What would you tell your 10-year-old self?
I think I would say things will get better in time because I don't want to go back and say some false pretense of don't listen to what other people think. Everyone's going to go through that at one point, I feel. And I would just say things will get better in time. Both of my parents were photographers, so I was in front of the camera a lot and I felt very comfortable in front of the camera. And I was like, I want to be a model, and it's models were glamorous, in the 90s. But again, nobody looked like me. And, I'm now on the roster at THE, agency locally, as a model. And so, I would just go back and say, in your time, things will happen when they're supposed to happen. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be in a year, but it will happen in time.
I love that. Yeah. So I always wrap my interviews with the best advice you ever got.
Ooh, I think the best advice I ever got, going back to the comparison game, another local blogger when I was starting, she told me this, Allison Gary of Wardrobe Oxygen. You probably know Allison. Yeah. She told me, she was like, just don't compare yourself to other people. And at the time I was like, but it's so hard. Like, how can I not? And now I get it. And it's something that I have always, always remembered through my journey here. And it goes with work too. It goes beyond just social media.
How do you mentally get past that though? Because human nature has us, we know comparison's a thief. Yeah. But human nature makes our brain want to go that way. So how do you do that detour?
Because everybody has their own strengths. What's something that you may be great at, I may not be great at, and vice versa. And I think we have to realize and own who we are and own our strengths and know what our strengths are and play into our strengths. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. So it all comes back to self-reflection and back to you.
Yes.
And I shared this recently on a TikTok, and some of the best advice I ever got kind of plays into that is I remember people, I talk about people, whatever business you are, they will always pass you by.
Yeah.
People that you think don't deserve it. People you think, got a lucky break.
Yep.
And I remember he told me, and he was a broadcaster, he was like, every second you spend thinking about them, you're taking away from yourself. Right. And I was like, oh, and so that's always my go-to to get me back on track, to be like, don't let it, consume you. Don't let it eat you. You can have it push you. Maybe it's a wake-up call. Maybe it's like, look, there is something to be said about good competition.
Absolutely. And it all goes back into that. Like you just said, put it back into yourself.
Yeah.
And put it back into what you do well, and like go forward.
Okay. And your biggest regret?
Oh, my biggest regret. I think my biggest regret is giving my talents away for free and not being paid what I'm worth. When I look back over the course of
How many years did you do that?
It took me about 2 years before I finally had the guts to start asking for payment for blog work.
Were you surprised when people were willing to pay you?
Yeah. And then, it goes both ways. Some people are like, yeah, of course. And like, even to this day, some people are like, yes, we accept your rates. We respect your rates. We'll pay it. And other people are like, oh, we can't pay that. Can you do something for us? And I'm like, you wouldn't go to a Starbucks and be like, oh, so I can't afford the like Frappuccino. Can I just get an iced coffee instead?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
That's not how it works.
So you don't negotiate anymore.
Well, with COVID now, I have negotiated, and it depends on the brand.
Yeah.
Honestly, it depends on each opportunity. I have been doing, a little bit of breaks here and there because I know the financial, like across the board, is very difficult. But I mean, you have to feel good with the number that you're putting out there. And if you're not being respected, then walk away.
You find yourself in a position where you can play up your strengths and know that you're doing the best job you can possibly do, and have the receipts for it. I'm like, yes, money
tree, bring some of that money over here,
God,
please.
Yes, money tree.
Okay.
Oh my God,
I will take this. Yes,
money. I learned from the best. That's Mama Chin. Mama Chin, Benji Chins, loves some money.
I mean,
and so she's always like, if you talk about worth, this woman has known from day one. I ask you too, I know we're supposed to wrap, but I gotta talk to you forever. So for people, you talked about, plus size clothing and how it was hard to find things. Yes. And I know when I was bigger, it was really hard. I mean, even jeans, like I would wear sweats and button up things or like more tunic type things. But fashion doesn't have to be that way now. Like, do you have any go-tos or places or resources, for women who are looking for clothing that fits them and flatters them and makes them feel beautiful?
Absolutely. So I think my favorite designer is who I'm wearing actually today, Tanya Taylor. I'm sure you're familiar with Tanya Taylor. On Rent the Runway, whatever. Like, that's actually how I found out about Tanya Taylor. And her designs are bright and happy and beautiful, and they just make me feel so good. They're colorful. And so I love her. I love Eloquii. 11 Honore is an amazing online retailer, all luxury, high-end clothing, which is, something that plus-size women haven't had for so long.
Yeah. And it's worth, you don't have to buy like 1,000 pieces.
No, you can buy one classic.
Invest in one good piece and then how about something that's more on the, I like a mall brand affordability?
Yeah. So Eloquii is affordable. ASOS is a great resource. ASOS. I mean, who doesn't love ASOS?
I love ASOS.
And I love Nordstrom too. Nordstrom has a really nice plus size selection as well.
They do. Okay. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful. Oh, we got so much wonderful advice and tips from you. Dani Sauter, blondeinthedistrict.com. You can follow her. Yeah, money. We cannot wait to hang out with you on the scene again. And as Anna Wintour said, fashion, you either know it or you don't, and you know it, and you know it.
Thank you.
Plus so much more.
Thank you.
So thank you for spending time with us, and we hope this is not your last visit.
Oh my gosh, no, I hope not either. We have a lot to talk about still.
Yes, and we have a foam party to plan.
Wasn't she amazing? She was amazing. She walked in, and I have a lot of lights in this room, but she was like, she just lights up the room. So many wonderful takeaways from that. And I think the biggest one, or one of the biggest ones that I heard, was that we all have strengths. Find a place that plays up to your strengths. Find a boss. Find a supporter. Find colleagues that recognize what you bring to the table and lets you do it and wants you to do it, and supports you and is your cheerleader. Because when you are in a place where people celebrate what you do well, you are going to raise the bar on yourself and you are going to exceed your own expectation. And that is where we find real growth. And if you are not in a position where right now that's possible, then like everybody else out here, you got to have a little side hustle. You got to do your homework on the side, right? And figure out a way that you can get there and do something every single day that gets you closer to that, whether it is linking up with a mentor, reaching out to someone who is in that industry and getting their take, doing more research online, finding ways. There is always a way. So if you want to connect with Dani, it is blondeinthedistrict.com. You can, of course, follow her on Instagram at blondeinthedistrict. You will not be disappointed. It's like a ray of sunshine on your feed all the time. Like she said, she loves to stay engaged. DM her, leave her a comment, give her a follow, show the love. All of that will come right back to you. I know she mentioned about Fia's Fabulous Finds. What's great about this, because I know not everybody here is in the DC area, is that she has her Facebook page, facebook.com/Fias, Fias, Fab Finds. And there she posts her online consignment, so you can actually purchase that way. She just had a Curvy Girl sale. So check it out. And remember, you're never fully dressed without a smile.
Then the time come for you to be your own man and take on the world, and you did. But somewhere along the line, you changed. You stopped being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame, like a big shadow. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Oh, you thought the show was over? Yeah, no way. If you listened last week, you would know that we started this new thing. It's kind of like a life advice segment where I answer what's on your mind. We call it the good question because there are no bad questions, right? So I wanted to first say thank you for everybody who sent some in because I got tons. Some of them are more for like the newsroom, things that I can pitch to the newsroom to cover or to look into. And then the other part of this is really what's on your mind. What do you have questions about? It could be about love, work, play, friends. I don't know. By the way, 202, before I get 202-918-5313, 202-918-5313. Hit me up in a text message. This one that came to us from Quantico, Virginia, Tamika writing in, what is best on your wings? Hot sauce, ranch, or mambo sauce? Hello, from the nation's capital. You know what it's got to be. It's got to be the mambo sauce. Now, I wrote Tamika back. I said, look, I love mambo sauce. I put on everything. Fries, chicken, steakums. Yeah, I love steakums. Anything. It's so good. It's hot and spicy, or sweet and hot, I should say. There's different levels of mambo sauce, different flavors out there. This one is by Capital City mambo sauce, a Washington, D.C. style sauce. You can get it online. If you are into dipping and that type of thing, stuff is a must-have. It's so good. And it's not too spicy, but definitely has kicks. So yes, Tamika, thank you. Thank you for the question. I hope that settles it for everybody. And then I got this one, and this one's just a little more personal. And it came to us from our friend Gary Nelson. If you are on our Facebook Live feeds during the week, usually around 4 p.m. Eastern during the 4 p.m. show. Gary is there a lot. And Gary wrote, "Hi, Angie, it's Gary. For the longest time, I've dealt with a lot of confidence and self-esteem issues. As much as I like to chime in and give a lot of my viewpoints, I am 31 flavors of hard on myself. From jobs to social to even love life, I've even struggled with being kind to myself and beating myself up a lot. How do you stay so positive and so encouraging for yourself as well as you do with all of your supporters?" Okay, I wrote Gary right back and I said, this is a great and honest question. And I definitely want to share it because I do, Gary, feel like a lot of us out there feel that way, right? How many of us wake up and we're just ready to, grab, the reins of the day and get it done? Yeah, none of us do that. Let's be honest. I drink a ton of coffee, right? So that's what gets me going usually. We all have our little quirks. We all have the little ways to get us out of bed. Sometimes it's just we got to go to work, right? We just got to start the day and we got to go through the motions. But I really think, Gary, that a lot of us have issues when it comes to being nice to ourselves. And I mean that physically, right? Because physically taking the time to treat ourselves and take care of our bodies, and also mentally taking time to massage and exercise our minds and even our hearts. We get so busy and so caught up in just living the day that many of us are living it on autopilot. So it is hard. And so my whole thing is finding ways to get around that. And so that starts with you making the choice that you're not going to dwell in your past and the decisions that you've made in the past, because guess what? News alert, you can't change it. Okay? So you can't change what you did before, what you did yesterday, what you did 5 minutes ago, but you can control what you're doing right this very second. Speaking of seconds, did you know you got 86,400 seconds in a day? Let that sink in. 86,400 seconds in a day. You wake up every morning, and that is what is deposited in your personal bank account. When you go to sleep at night, it goes down to zero. But how many of those 86,400 seconds of your day were wasted? Okay? Listen, this is a luxury. What we're getting. Every day you wake up and you get another breath, that is a luxury. And getting that perspective takes practice. I don't wake up and let me feel the earth beneath my toes. I think I read that in The Secret, one of those books, and take it in and, let the ions get in my body and let me take in another breath. No, I don't do that. But I have to remind myself to do that. And how do I do it? I do it through reading books. Yes, I need self-help. I love this book. We featured Mark and Angel, life hackers, on our show a few episodes back. Getting Back to Happy is a great one. I have a little journal called Find Your Happy, and I got that from a good friend of mine. I love it because I don't really have to think. You read it and it's funny and it's great when I do my baths. I take warm baths at night. I take them sometimes at 2 a.m. That's when I tick. I'm alive between midnight and 5 a.m. That's my time. And I will listen to podcasts that will help motivate me because I like hearing other people's stories, which is why I like doing the podcast too. And I also really try to take time to be in the present. And what I mean by that, I mean being aware about, gosh, this is making me feel happy when I'm editing, a fun little video. Gosh, it doesn't feel like work. It's like fun. Like I look forward to doing it. What makes you tick? What makes you happy?
Okay? You got to do a self-audit. And then you've got to recognize that if you are constantly feeding yourself these feelings of negativity, if that's what's overtaking you, if you've got 31 flavors of hard and you don't have 62 flavors of good and nice and love, then this is a time of reevaluation. And this is a time of sitting down, doing your homework, and cutting out what is keeping you in the spot. What are these distractions? Is it a person? Is it your environment? Is it the job? And you got to cut those distractions out so you can get focused on what makes you tick. And guess what? You can't say I'm bored and I don't know what I want to do with my life, because that's not going to cut it. This world, this galaxy goes on and on and on and on and on. You're too good of a person. Most people are too good of a person to just sit there and not know what you should be doing. Call a friend. Give them 100% of your undivided attention. When is the last time you had a conversation like that with someone? Write a letter. When's the last time you did that and really put your feelings down on paper on something tangible and send it to somebody? Listen to your favorite shows. Create a playlist. Get out in nature. Go for a hike by yourself so you can be at one with your thoughts. These are all little things that add up. And one day, hopefully, it's not going to be magic, but one day things will start to click. If you sit here and we wait for life to happen to us, you'll be waiting forever, and it's going to be pretty damn miserable. I like to believe in magic, but there's no real magic or even great luck that's out there that it's going to bring that to you. And you know what? Counseling isn't a bad thing either. If you're in a position where you can get it, and most places do offer those services to you through your employers, and I feel like many of us need it more than ever after this past year. I've gone to a therapist, I've gone to a life coach, and we tend to do that when we really need them. No. Make it consistent. Make it part of your day. Because if you need help checking in with yourself, that's okay. That's okay. If you need help checking with yourself to realize your worth and your potential, it's okay. You can't be afraid to ask for help. So, are there days where I don't want to smile and I don't want to be positive and I don't want to push? Yes. And those are days that I will keep to myself. And my husband will tell you, he'll be like, oh, you're in a mood. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it takes practice reminding yourself of perspective, of what we have, and not only what we have, but what we're all capable of doing. And that is making our own choice. We're not going to sit here and decide when we're going to die and how we're going to die. I mean, hopefully not. But we are going to decide how we're going to live. And if something is not serving you right now, Mr. Gary, and everybody else out there listening, get rid of it. Cut it out, okay? Life is too short. And you got a good one. And I think that's a good way to wrap up our good question. Thank you so much, everybody, for all your submissions again. Please keep them coming. The number 202-918-5313. I look forward to answering more of them online. And remember, if you subscribe to the Oh My Gosh Show on YouTube, I'll have a separate playlist just for good questions where every week I'll just cut those out and we'll have an ongoing list of them. Okay? And if you like the show, don't forget to give us a 5-star review. Yes, 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 yes. That is the best compliment you could give us, okay, on Apple Podcasts. Thanks so much. See you next time.
You watched or listened to the very end. Thanks so much. Don't worry, you can watch more by subscribing to the Oh My Gosh Show on YouTube, Facebook Watch, Twitch, or Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your favorite shows.